Live streaming is on.
Okay, should we begin?
Yes.
Okay. So, about this film, Victor Erice's El Sur, he's only made two films, you guys might know. Two feature films, one documentary. But yeah, this is the second of his films. And I've told you guys that it's my favorite of his films. I find this film better than, what's the other one? Spirit of the Beehive. So yeah, I really like this film. And going for first reaction, so I've seen this film long time ago uh, in the cinema, and then right now is the second viewing of the film. And while watching the film for the second time, sorry about the disturbance, by the way, there's some kids playing outside. So watching this for the second time, it was a completely different experience. Also because I've forgotten about the film and it's been a long time. Reality of the situation is, and how much of that the child is able to grasp and narrate. So I saw the film through the perspective of the father and the mother, and it reads like a completely different film through that. So yeah, but, I mean, I've said it enough that I really like this film, and the reasons will come up as the discussion goes along. But Vishal, do you want to share your thoughts?
I actually saw the film twice in 2 days, and find it a very interesting.
You finished the old film,
Job.
like entire two film
Huh?
twice. You finished it twice, or you?
Yes.
Okay.
So as I said, there's so much to love about this film. But when I saw the film, my first reaction was, "This is an incomplete film. This seems." Clearly, there are enough people to call it that. But in my view, if the second half would have happened, it would definitely be a masterpiece, because whatever little I know, it was quite stunning. And so, yeah, I mean, I'm here to listen to what makes this film works, and maybe I'll have something more to talk about as the discussion goes on.
Were you aware of the film's incomplete nature when you first saw it, or did this
I
occur to you?
I did not know
you-
anything about Victor Erice or the film.
Okay.
Before I'd seen the film, I only knew that he made Spirit of the Beehives, which I have
Okay.
not seen.
Okay.
But I had no idea. It just felt incomplete to me.
At what point of the film did it feel incomplete?
Because the film ended abruptly.
At the end, not during the film
No,
itself.
during the film, I was waiting for. I was wondering what is the film doing exactly, and in my book, I've seen it twice, and when I saw it again, I saw it through a lens of socialism, and which I don't know. I'm not really sure. Having known the other the bits of the second half of the film, I don't see it with that lens, with the lens of socialism. But it felt incomplete, and I mean, rightly so. The director himself says it's an incomplete film. So yeah, it has its merits. Absolutely, no doubt, it has its merits, and the things that people are liking about this film is what would have made it great if the film was complete, in my book complete. But right now I'm unable to, love it as much as others do. I enjoyed it, but I wouldn't say I loved it.
Okay, I can understand that the film did not, come together in the end, but at least the film is what, 1.5 hours long. So the first 1.5 hours, were you able to?
For me, he's just feeding you information throughout the film, and it never really, it does, in a way it does, yes, but it's not definitive for me. The denouement is not really a definitive denouement for me. So it never really, I would say, it did not amount to anything. It's not that it's complete in its own way, but it does not amount to anything special for me. Which I would say like would be different with the second half. My lens is that of an incomplete film, so I'm sorry for bringing that up all the time. So
I haven't heard of this term denouement. What does that mean?
basically, everything coming together, the end.
I see. Okay.
The ending of any story. So this is what I have to say. Like I went with a lot of expectations, and I can appreciate it. I was mesmerized by the visuals. I have to say, like the lovely visuals. Like wow, I probably would remember them. It would have been a stunning experience.
I never bothered to
Just
look up
to
what happens. Yeah, Mohammed, please.
just to add to Vishal's point, I just saw I think 15 or 20 minutes of the first part, and I agree with the what Vishal is saying. The images, the sunlight coming from the window, lighting up and dimming eventually, that really captured me. Then yeah, I'm really interested to watch it. Yeah, but yeah, I agree with that. Yeah,
I
beautiful
really
visual.
like that whatever Mohammed said right now, that it's very deliberate, and deliberate in the sense it's, what is the word for it? It felt theatrical, but um, it definitely went with the theme of the film, and so it was not because they did not know any better. It was done with a lot of purpose and very nicely done, very nicely. Because the film starts with the credits, they come on in darkness, and then there is this on the right hand side of the screen, I think it's the window, and there's light coming through the window. It's like probably dawn, and then the film starts. So it's very nicely done. Images were quite powerful, quite powerful.
Hmm, true.
Hi, sorry about that. I just had to step out for a quick second. It's raining and I had to close all the windows. So, what did I miss? Hello?
Just we were talking about the visual.
So I was
Cinematography.
just
Okay.
adding to what Mohammed said.
Okay.
Visuals. Not only were they mind blowing, I was saying that it was theatrical. It felt theatrical, but there was a lot of thought behind it. It was not so when you go to watch a play. So these changes in lights, they are done because that's the only way they can play with lights. So it felt like it happened in the film, but it had a lot of emotional heft, and it had a lot of merit in terms of the subtleties of the story. So it was quite nice. It was quite
and
nice.
and also it felt like a meditative I found, means, as I was watching, it was quiet. Means I was not rushing. I was not trying to decipher the hidden meaning, but a kind of meditative state I was going through. Visual, yeah. So we'll talk a lot about that in
That
further
is
discussion.
true. His films are like that. It's very calm and relaxing, and meditative is actually the very uh, correct word for his films. Because there's a lot of philosophy and um, about life and greater things in general. I don't know if you read the description, director intro I wrote on Telegram, and I stand by what I wrote over there. That his films
Yeah.
are like that, and I'll come back to the lighting in a bit.
Yeah.
But so when I was watching this film, I was thinking about this girl, right? This little child, that she lives alone in the house, and she's the only child of the house, if I can say that. She doesn't live alone in the house. She's the only child of the house. We don't see her play with any neighboring children. We don't see her in school. So basically, she's growing up on her own. And the only time we see her uh, do something with another person is with her father. She's either, going on a bike ride, or she's assisting her father in, trying to figure out how deep, where to find water for the farmers. And so all her activities are usually tied with her father. So her father is the closest thing to a best friend figure she has in her life. And in the first beginning, uh, first half, not first half, but first quarter of the film, you just listen to her build up the image of this father character, about how mysterious he was, who he was, and a larger than life he was. And that is also controlled by the cinematography a little bit. You often see the father through her eyes, looking up. Um, and so I was thinking about this little child character, that how important is playtime for a child, because playtime is socialization for children, right? They learn each other's boundaries, they learn what behavior is acceptable and not acceptable, and outside the purview of parent supervision. So I would say playtime is very integral to a child's growth, and she didn't have that. So what happens when you take away an important part of a child's development, and how does it impact the child's psychology growing up? So I was thinking about that.
That is actually a great observation, because that does happen in the film. If you look at her, she's always looking up to her father, uh, till that point when she gets angsty with her father. Up to that point, she's always looking up to her father as even probably like a magical figure. And this thing where he finds the depth of water, it's such
Right.
a brilliantly done scene in terms of because I don't know the maths behind that particular, procedure, but it does not matter, because in a way it's mythical. So she's always looking up to him, and she never looks like that, looks with those emotions towards her mother. And I have to
Correct.
say, even when I saw the when I saw the film for the first time, something that truly stunned me, blew me away, and would probably rank in great for me, great moments in cinema was when she goes up to her father during her communion and tells her that if you are bored, then just go out, and
Yeah, that was so sweet.
it touched me. I can't put it in words. So these are the kind of things that probably you cannot explain. So it was I mean, I totally agree with whatever you're saying. And actually, Vivek, that is the reason I believe. So all these things that you just said, and whatever bit I've she says that receipt. So which is he made a call to the south, and in the second half she's obviously go to the south. So this is a journey that she's making on behalf of her father. So all these things, somebody that she looked up to with such, not only love, more than love, some sort of magic in her eyes, and then she makes that journey instead of her father and completes him, or something that he wanted to do, or something that was missing in his life. So quite, as a setup, quite stunning. And also we are looking up to, when we are growing up, playtime is very important, and we are also looking up to our parents as our heroes, which is the way she looks at her father. So very, very nicely done. Yeah.
Hi, Samartha. Thanks for joining.
Hey Vivek, to be honest, I haven't seen this film yet, so
Okay.
I'll just hang around for a little bit, just listen in a little bit, and then maybe I'll
Okay.
see.
I think Mohammed has seen 20 minutes of the film, so it's all right. I'm just glad you guys could be
Samartha, we
here.
had lost all hope that you would come today. So we are glad that you are here.
No discussion is complete without Samartha. Let me just say that.
Oh my God, now you guys are embarrassing me.
No, we are just piling on the pressure so that you make it a point to come every time.
Right.
So, Vishal, going back to this discovery scene, right? Water, trying to find water for the farmers. It has meaning. It's not meaningless. It has meaning. The meaning is that it is meaningless in the sense that
No, that's not what I'm saying. That's not what I'm saying. By meaning, I'm not saying it's meaningless. It is very meaningful. What I'm saying is, I don't know the science behind it, but
that's the joke. There is no science behind it.
that's what I'm saying. I'm not, and it doesn't matter whether there is science behind it. मेरा point वही है कि the whole action is so beautifully set up.
Right.
And
the confidence in which he performs the ritual.
So it's the connection, right? Because he goes and stands behind him, and there is this visual connection forming, which is much more important than the science. So that's what I'm saying. It's lovely. I agree with you. मैं पूरा agree कर रहा हूँ.
Yeah. So about this mythical character thing, right? It's a little bit is fed into her. So this father is a very complex character, and this is something I was able to observe only with my second viewing. First time, all of this went over my head, or at least I was not looking for it. This time I was, so I was able to notice them. Is that the father is a very complex character, and he's not trying to be mythical. So this character, he's a doctor. We're assuming successful doctor because he's able to, own a large estate and a nice house. And you would assume a doctor would follow science and reasoning and logic. But he's a contrarian. He's a doctor at the hospital, but outside of the hospital, he is, some sort of silly, mythical magician figure, where he has this pendulum that he uses for hypnotism. He has this little tool to figure out where the water reservoirs are, and everyone believes him. His wife believes him. That's why she tells his daughter that, she tells her in a very playful manner that your father has powers and he doesn't want those powers to escape. But his wife believes him too. So that's why this girl grew up in this environment where this is the norm, and she accepts that, my father is a special person. He's not just my father, he's a larger than life character. But in reality, he's just as lost and confused as the rest of the adults, where he's not able to make up his mind. Am I a science and reason guy, or am I a myth and magic guy? So that is just one of his one of the topics where he's lost on. There's multiple topics which come up later in the film where he's equally lost on, and it kind of explains why his character is so mysterious. In fact, he's not mysterious. He's just trying to still find out who he is. That's his problem, and that's why he's so tormented.
I also are you sorry.
No. Please jump in at any point.
No, because I also felt that's obviously there, but and the way I was looking at it was, but it is still not. Again, I come back to the second half, so it's still not fitting with the narrative in the second half, because what the narrative that I was forming. So I was looking at it from the lens of people versus people versus the government, because Spain was under a dictatorship, and there is Spanish Civil War is also mentioned in the film, and this very clear mention of what is right and what is wrong. And at some point he was right, and then when the government formed, he was wrong. So that is a point of crisis for the father figure. So when for example you are supporting a government and you start loving a government, but then they do their own thing, but you keep on loving them because you have blind faith in the people that you vote for. So that is what I was thinking about when I was seeing the film, because I was very keen on trying to figuring out what is the sociological aspect of this film. There has to be a political message in the film. So which might have been there in the second half, but the more I thought about it, though this is something that I believe is there in the film, but the more I thought about it, I realized that there is no overt political messaging in this film. But this is something that crossed my mind.
The politics is there, you're not wrong. The politics is there, but it is such a footnote to the entire thing that even if you deleted those dialogues, the film would still work the same way. So the politics is there, and I want to remember this character, the nanny character. I forgot her name. Something with M. Milagros. Yeah. I want to remember the way she explains politics to a 7 or 8 year old girl. Right, it's so lovingly done and it's so gently designed. She says, when the war started, your grandpa was with the bad guys and father was with the good guys. But once this person, so-and-so person won, your grandpa became on the good side and your father became on the good side. What can you do? This is just how the world works. So she's not just teaching her about the war of ideologies, but she's also teaching her about these things will happen, and if you try to interpret, what's good and what's bad and where do I stand, you'll be lost, and there's no winners in this battle. And that's what happened, right? Father and son, they broke their bond just because their ideologies could not match, and that's such a terrible thing. It takes 20-25 years for a bond to have come to fruition, and takes one small war for a year to break everything forever. So that was my reading of the politics of the film.
Okay.
Yeah. Then going back to you were talking about this girl doesn't look at the mother the same, right? So this point I was thinking about, that this girl, in a way, she's obsessed with her father because she seeks validation from him. Validation or attention, either way you call it. She wants to spend time with him, and he's the one who's always unavailable. He's either out in the fields, or he's out in the hospital, or he's locked up in his attic doing his experiments, and yeah, she's not even allowed to play when he's in the house. So not only does she not have friends, she's not even allowed to play in the house. And so that got me thinking that maybe it is so that we seek validation from people who ignore us or who don't see us as important as we want them to see us. So at the same time, her mother spends a great deal of time towards her, and this is reinforced again in the film when the two ladies arrive for the communion. Milagros is the one who took care of him, raised him, and basically played his mother's role. And she's the one who has this emotional rekindling when she sees him after many years. When I saw the film for the first time, I thought, okay, that's his mother. Turns out it's not. That's the nanny. And the second lady we meet, the lady who's quite muted and doesn't really respond much, even though she's seeing her son after a very long time, maybe more than 10 years. That's the mother. And if you look at Augustine's face over there, he's overjoyed to see her, even though you barely get a reaction from the mother. So in some ways, that tradition has not reinvented, but come up again in the second generation.
Continue.
Yeah, the tradition has continued, unfortunately. So maybe it is so in our lives that we do seek attention and validation from people who don't see us as equally important. Any thoughts about that?
No, it was there, but I also looked at it from a psychological point of view, wherein boys are more, boys want Oedipal complex, hai na? So I was always looking at it from that lens. But it's obviously there, it's clearly there, but I never thought of it as something wherein you are.
Oedipus complex is Freud's, right?
I think it is, yes. So
okay.
I was never.
Or is there anything specific which seemed Oedipal to you?
No, not Oedipal. Not. It's this theory, right? That men want validation from their mom, and girls want their validation from their fathers. So I might be totally wrong, but something like that. So वो तो एक है.
I always disagree on Freud. So
Huh?
I always disagree about Freud.
Huh.
So,
but what I'm saying is
on contrary, I agree with Freud.
Oh, you do? Okay, we should have a conversation.
No, but that is there. वो तो अभी उस पे क्या argument करना? I've not read it, but on the face it makes sense. But what I'm saying is कि it was there. Whatever he's saying, she's looking for validation from her father, but it never came across to me as a film about. We look for validation from people who don't give us attention. But having said that, it could be she also goes to this. She likes this guy, but he probably gives her attention and she doesn't really respect it. So it might be possible that he was trying to say that. It's totally possible.
Yeah, that's another reinforcement.
I don't have any views on it, but it's totally possible.
Okay. Yeah, since we were in the topic of finding appreciation from people who don't look at us as important in their lives, the mother character was largely ignored, right? The mother was ignored by the father, mother was ignored by the daughter. But the second time which I was watching, you can see the amount of effort she puts into both relationships to be a good wife and also to be a good mother. She spends a lot of effort to teach her daughter spends a lot of effort to tolerate the antics of the husband. And funny thing is, this time around when I saw the film, in the voiceover she says, I have very few memories of my mother, but then it goes on a montage of scenes one by one by one. She's stitching clothes, she's gardening in the greenhouse, then she's teaching her how to write, multiple visuals. So you can see the amount of effort that is being put in by the mother. But all of that washed away because she doesn't remember them. And that was a little disheartening. And same with the Milagros character. I thought that she's the one who did all the work, but she's not appreciated for all that she's done.
I that's actually a good observation, but not bad. That's actually a very interesting observation. So probably he's also trying to say that you have those memories, but when she says that she doesn't really have memories with her mom, so her memories with her mom are not, let's say her memories with her mom are not magical, and the ones with her father is magical. So that's actually an interesting way of seeing it. It's there. I mean, it's obviously there. So I did not notice that she has memories with her mom, but they're obviously not that special. But the ones with her father are vivid, and they have that, I'm using the word magic on purpose because the way she looks at him, she's obviously looking for what's the word you used, man? Like, validation. But it borders on looking at something with stars in your eyes, which is quite nicely done by the director. So yeah.
Okay, I want to remember this word magical because I want to refer to it later on. Earlier in the call, you mentioned the setting is very theatrical at times and the way light moves in and out and all that. So, to which, if you think about the form of the film and the structure of the story, it is laid out in a simple way, but every layer of the story has a different grammar of film. So the first scene of the film is, this teenager girl waking up and finding the pendulum. Okay, and the second stage is her memory as a child, and there's a third stage where she goes into an imagination of certain things where she was not present. So each layer, kind of like Inception, each layer you go up, the more set up it gets, the less natural it becomes. And theatrical, the word you used, the more theatrical it becomes. So that was quite interesting because it doesn't come across as a multi-layered film, nor is it trying to show off that it's doing multiple storylines at the same time. But it moves in and out of these scenes so seamlessly that you forget that it is doing that. And going back to the camera work and lighting, and you were using the word magical, right, specifically. And if you remember the description I wrote about Victor Erice, he likes to use extremely saturated light to give a character some shape, and that is the only light which will be lighting the character. There'll be no bounces. There's no, the room will not be lit. It will be as dark as it is lit. And there's definitely some influence of chiaroscuro and Baroque painters and so on. But beyond that, he does this with some reasoning. And I was trying to figure out what is the logic. When do you use this technique and when do you not? Because if you see in the film, a lot of the scenes in the film are pretty grounded and realistic, right? And there are scenes which, like you said, magical. And there are scenes which, again, like you said, are theatrical. So when do you do which technique and why? I was thinking about that while watching the film also. So I noticed that whenever a character sinks into their memories, the film breaks realism instantly. So Victor Erice or Erice is a fan of silent era films, and a big characteristic of silent era films is that there's very little film grammar or formalist cinema language or classical cinema language, which we call. People were trying things out and figuring things out. So there are people who come from the vaudeville tradition, which is, if I can explain vaudeville very quickly, it is basically the Vine/TikTok of 1920s and 30s. That people have 5 minutes to come on stage, do their act, and leave. And anyone who gets the most tips, becomes more and more popular. And a lot of these vaudeville people ended up transitioning to film. So they brought their techniques into film. Then there were theater people who got their technique to film. Then there were musicians who brought their technique to film. So everybody was trying new things, and there's magicians who brought their techniques to film. Very important. Everybody was trying new things, and there's no set rules. Nobody was saying that if you do this, the movie will not work, or you have to shoot a thriller sequence this way, or you have to shoot a drama sequence this way. So he's in love with that era of filmmaking. So his influence are F.W. Murnau and Eric von Stroheim and all these people. So he's not afraid to break the rules of cinematic language, and that's what he does. So anytime a character goes into memory, he breaks the rules of realism and he starts going into a more emotional state. And one correlation I made, which I corrected in my second viewing, is that whenever she goes into her imagination, it goes into this deep golden warm light, because there's a lot of emotion attached to what she thinks is memories, but basically she's imagining. So it's, bathed in a beautiful golden warm light. And those are the moments which you might be calling magical. Is that right, Vishal?
What I was calling magical was the way she looks at her.
The character interaction.
Yeah.
And then there's her memories, which are very neutral in color. So all the scenes with the mother, very neutral in color. Very sterile, very white. There's no color tone to it. As neutral as possible. But all the scenes where she's building up this image of the father larger than life, that some scenes of the father are also neutral, because those may be memories, I think. And whatever she imagined, like him teaching her how the pendulum works and all these things, fully bathed in golden light. And the third level, which is, what she thinks is a memory, but she's imagining. Especially this one scene in the beginning where she says, my earliest memory of my father is him predicting that the child would be a girl. He again does this with the pendulum. It's set up like a silent era film shot. Stable camera, stable actors, not moving much, because motion blur completely screws the image back then. because films were shot at a slower frame rate, 15 frames per second, if I'm not wrong, and very little movement. And the light also is very, like you said, very theatrical. It comes and goes on its own. It's not maintaining the rules of reality. It's not following the angle of sunlight or the color of sunlight. It's doing its own thing. Like you said, theatrical. So, yeah. And
Oh, beautiful addition. I didn't know that why the movie is moving in a slow pace, and the reason you mentioned that in earlier days the cameras, we had the limitation with the cameras. So really, I didn't know this. Thank you.
Oh, thanks, Mohammed.
Actually, that's what I was about to say. We should put in a link for chiaroscuro and also recommend Cabinet of Dr. Caligari, like German expressionism. I think people would love it.
Oh, Caligari is in a different zone, though. It's like you said, expressionist. No, that's very high contrast and surrealist kind of film. Your voice is breaking, Vishal.
Can you hear me?
Am I
Yes,
audible now?
No, when you said chiaroscuro, I was thinking of like Caravaggio paintings or Rembrandt has a very subtle treatment of chiaroscuro. So is it the same light and shade thing you're talking about?
Correct. Chiaroscuro was a technique which was pioneered by Caravaggio and then copied by several painters after him.
Okay, so I'm expecting some beautiful images when I watch this film because I love Caravaggio. That sharp contrast that it brings with some treatment of light and shade is amazing.
Also, take a look at Francesco Goya. He's also a Spanish Baroque painter.
Okay.
There's a big influence from the use of colors is inspired by Goya, and the style of lighting is inspired by
Goya.
Yeah.
And things are phenomenal.
Yeah, Diego Velázquez. These are all influences of the director. So
I think some of these people were contemporaries of Rembrandt, right? 1800s, 1850s.
No, not of Rembrandt. Not of Rembrandt.
Okay.
Caravaggio was contemporary with Titian.
Okay.
And that's, again, we can talk about that after the film because it's slightly off topic. Then what was that? Yeah, in the description, the director intro that I've written down, I've mentioned that he uses this magical realism quality to depict some scenes. Then he also juxtaposes this with cold, harsh, realistic images of the surroundings. And he does this because both his films, the surroundings play a major role in how the character grows up, or the how the character's personality is shaped. It has a big influence. The circumstances, the surroundings, the place. Then he uses weather a lot. You might have noticed a few scenes of time passing and weather passing. And in fact, one of the great appeals of south of Spain to this little girl is that it is always warm. And she lives in an environment which is always cold. Even when it's not snowing, she's wearing a sweater. So, yeah, this contrast of weather is another way he makes the place more dreamlike and more appealing to this girl. And for a girl who's not seeing the outside world, her only exposure to south of Spain is through these little hand-painted postcards, right? So they have very beautiful images, very elaborate costumes, and basically what a travel magazine would sell you back these days. So she has a very exaggerated view of what south of Spain might be like. So a part of a always wanted to go there just out of curiosity for that. And there's always this desire to go out, explore, and go to places you've never been, right? So this is one instance where I think I'll agree with you, Vishal, that this desire was not addressed because it lacks the ending. But yeah, later on, once we find out about the relationships of the father, it moves into a different territory and different reasoning why she wanted to go to the south.
Also,
Okay.
when we're talking about lighting, so there is this mention of, there is very clear mention of two films which has shadow in their title. And when she's thinking about her father, and when these theatrical lighting they come into the picture, there is very clear transition from shadow and the light revealing something. So that's why I said, like, it looked theatrical, but there was purpose, which I enjoyed. Also, Shadow of a Doubt, which is
Hitchcock.
second film poster that we see.
Oh, right.
This young girl with issues with elderly figure who comes in the house, and so that there might be some sort of resonance.
That's right. I couldn't figure out the title. I couldn't figure out the translation.
Yeah.
But yeah, Shadow of the Doubt has that. You're right. Then okay, let's talk about the most important element of the story, right? The relationship which changes over the course of the film. So we talked extensively about how the girl grows up with starry eyes towards the father, but once we go back to this teenager version of this character, the circumstances are different, the environment is different, and the tone of the film is very different. So yeah, and it begins with the line that, like most people, I learned to grow up alone. That after a certain point, she stopped seeking that validation, she stopped seeking that attention, and she just grew up to be a more private, shy person. And a part of the reason why she grew up to be a private, shy person could be the playtime discussion that we are having. Like, this child never had access to other children to play with. She didn't have playtime. She didn't grow up around people. So socialization is very important for us to learn our boundaries and things like that. So she never had that. So what happens when you're thrown in a brand new environment where you know nothing about? You cocoon yourself and you try to protect yourself, and that's what is happening with her. She's become this shy introvert sort of person who doesn't know where she belongs in the social hierarchy, and she protects herself by not interacting much with the rest of the world. And I think she's abandoned, not abandoned, but she's given up on the idea that her father will play the role of a father, if I can say that. Because he was a friend character to her in the early days of life, but never a father character much. And she's even nervous whether her father will come to her communion, which, if it's such an important day, a child should not worry whether my father will come or not. And Vishal is asking which director. Okay. Oh, the influences of Victor Erice. I'll mention that later on. It's in the Telegram discussion, Telegram intro post. So, yeah, this girl later finds out that her father was in a relationship with another woman, and that scene is very interesting because it's one of the few times you don't see the film through the eyes of the girl. You're always following the little girl and you're seeing the world from her perspective. But once he comes out of the cinema, he goes to the cafe and he starts writing. He goes into this monologue version by reading the letter, and you hear the voiceover of the actress. That's the only time we're not with the girl. And I was trying to think, why would he do that? Why would the director do that? And on my second viewing, I came to the conclusion that this is again something that she's made up in her memories. It's not, may or may not have happened. Yeah. So, yeah, we find out that he has a relationship with another lady in the south, and he left the south of Spain for some reason, whether it's the political ideological battle with his father, or whether it's a bad romance with this actress, or whether it's the political situation in the south where he was bound to be arrested if he stayed any longer. We don't know. It could be any of those things. And these are the reasons why he's so tormented, that he's still trying to figure out what to do with his life. Should he go back to this woman? Should he go back and patch things up with his father? Should he admit defeat politically, that you know what, okay, I had my ideology, but I don't have the patience to support it anymore, and I just want to live my life as a person and not as an activist? Or he's a man of science by profession, but his passion is not sorcery, but mystic nonsense. So he's got all these battles within him that he's constantly trying to figure out. And one more thing I understood while watching this film for the second time is that he's not trying to be a difficult person. This man is severely depressed, and nobody understands him. At best, his wife tries to entertain him, in the sense, she understands that sometimes he needs space, so he just disappears, and she doesn't get irritated at his antics, that during the day of the communion he's gone out shooting in the fields. So she in a way tolerates him and entertains his antics. But beyond that, we don't see much of a relationship between those two. So it's clear that the marriage is not in good shape. And after the cafe, you see him walk by this photo studio, and he looks at the picture of his daughter. And this girl is hiding and trying to see what the reaction is. And he has no reaction whatsoever. And he walks by. So to the girl, it seems that father doesn't care about me, and He doesn't even remember the moment where we took this important, beautiful picture together. So beautiful that the photo store owner decided to put it in the storefront. But the reality is he is depressed. And when you are depressed, you may have a subdued reaction to everyday things in your life. So while looking at the picture, he may not have been thinking about the daughter at all. And towards the end, when they finally have this lunchtime confrontation at the hotel, I think he has reached the point in his life that he has given up on all these things he was so frustrated about or so lost about. And he thought, okay, my one thread of life, I'm going to find an identity as a father. I'm going to be a father to my girl again because she loves me so much and I want to be there for her. And during that lunch, her behavior is very different. She's more of an individual and less of a daughter. And he's trying to see her as a little girl again. But that stage is long gone. She has become, I forgot her name in the film. Do you guys remember? Estrella. So he's trying to see Estrella, the daughter, but she's become Estrella, a young girl or a teenager, young woman on her own. And she has her own life and all these things. And another thing which I just remembered, that she has a semi-relationship with some guy who's fond of her, and she may or may not be in a relationship with him. So she's experienced some sort of love in her life. And I think by that time she understands that no matter how wonderful that relationship might have been, it is not worth ruining someone else's life on the side. So from the daughter's point of view, the father has forsaken his family for this imaginary relationship in his mind, when that's not the truth at all. The truth is a little more complicated, which he does not understand yet. So that lunch scene is father trying to get back his daughter and repurpose his life as a father. And he totally sinks when the daughter mentions the relationship, and he knows that this girl doesn't see me in the same light anymore. And then they end the scene with the music playing in the wedding hall. It's the same music which played in the communion. And at first, the little girl, Estrella doesn't even remember what this music is. So, small fact about this music, I kind of looked this up, what this music is and why this music was used, because the film does use music in a few points of the film. But for this scene, the music is played in the scene by a musician. So I was thinking, why would that be? Why not use some other music to tie the scene up emotionally? So in the film, they call this song Paso Doble, and it's a traditional Spanish song which is played at celebrations and happy events. But it also has another past where this music was also used to cheer up troops during the war. So it does have a second meaning. And this guy was definitely, involved politically, involved in the war and all those things. So I wonder what is to be made of that. I haven't really come to a conclusion on that, but I do think there is something to dig deeper in. And so that wedding scene plays out, and this girl doesn't even remember this important moment of their life. Then she recollects that yes, it did happen, and she moves on. and she leaves, and it ends up being the final time they speak to each other. And that's because the man has finally lost hope, given up on every single thing he was so lost about. And that's how the film ends. And yeah, so I know the film is incomplete, this and that, but this whole arc was tied up for me. I know that there is a third act which is missing in the film. I didn't bother to look it up, what it was supposed to be or what it should have been. But within the context of what was approached or what was shown to us, I got closure from these scenes. Yeah. I'm speaking for too long.
One more thing that for me, the depression of the father could definitely be something that's happening, but it could also be something which happens with maybe this girl is depressed and her the story is narrated by her, and maybe it's part of her counseling. That's something that crossed my mind. Something else, I don't remember what. Anyway, forgot. I can't remember. There was something I was about to say. Something it just slipped out of my mind.
There's one small piece of symbolism that I saw. It's not important in any way, but it was nice to see that the father always travels on a motorbike, right? His two-wheelers are his freedom, because you associate motorbikes with young men, not with middle-aged men. Or maybe you do. Some middle-aged guys are into expensive motorbikes. But for the most part, when you think about motorbikes, you think about young guys living their youth. And I think he was holding on to that youth in the form of that bike. So that bike represented freedom, independence, go anywhere, anytime you want, that kind of thing. Then when the girl grows up, she gets her own set of wheels, which is the bicycle. And she goes down the same pathway or the same corridor of trees, but in reverse. Instead of going, she's coming back. So that she has her freedom to go anywhere and do anything she wants, but she's coming back home on her little bike. So it's a throwaway piece of symbolism, but I appreciated that it added a little more to the film.
I just remembered what I was thinking. So when I use the word magic, she looks up at her father with magic in her eyes. And so clearly, as we've discussed, her moments with her father are more cherished than those with her mom. And when she discovers her father's secret, it's like for her, I felt like there was this break wherein she thought that she had this secret life with her father, but now there is somebody else. And from that point on, it's never the same. And I found that very interesting. But again, for me, this film needed that next section. It's not complete. It bothered me.
She finds out about Irene Rios early on in the film.
Correct.
But she still has those dreams and imaginations about the father.
She might have dreams, but
yeah.
This is the start of deterioration of her relationship with her father, and this fraying of the relationship, it starts from that point.
Okay, I'll tell you my observation. Then you can agree or disagree. That when she finds about this other woman, right? She's honestly curious who this person is, what this person is. I don't think this little girl even understands that the father may be in a second relationship. Later on, she puts two and two together, and then she gets mad at her mom that I know that you know that we both know what is going on. It's only much later that she figures it out. And I didn't see her judge the father until she becomes a teenager. When she becomes a teenager,
I'm not saying she's judging him.
Yeah, when she becomes a teenager, her attitude towards the father is very different, because I think that's what I meant, right? That she's fallen in love herself, and she understands that I know what this is, but it is not worth ruining a family. And that's when you really see this disconnect between father and daughter.
I'm not really convinced with that line of thought. But as you're saying that as I said, I'm not saying that as soon as she finds out the secret of her father, the relationship goes downhill. I'm saying that's the start of the relationship starting to fray. That's all.
Okay.
Because she stops, once she realizes these things, she stops looking at her father that way. And this is the only the scene with the wool, right? She's with her mom. I think that is the only usage of red in a very definitive way in the film. At least something, not that I remember red being used that vividly anywhere else. I might be wrong. But that is something I noticed both times.
Okay. Moving on to closing thoughts, and also as a connection to the mental wellness thing. When I think about the film as a whole, I see this film trying to talk about how much childhood influences your later years. The surroundings you grow up in, the people you grow up around, the kind of the kind of people you look up to, and all these things make a difference in the end. And let's say even if you did not have a perfect childhood, or you did not have a great childhood, it is up to you to address that, understand that, and come over that. If you don't, the past can be a prison which can swallow you. And that's what she fights and recovers from in the film, because we see the film through her eyes. But I do recommend everyone to watch the film from a second time and try to understand the situation or the story from the parents' perspective, because it's a completely different film. So yeah, those are my closing thoughts. Anything from you, Vishal?
Yeah, when I saw the film, I felt like, okay, this did not come together for me. And then when I started reading about it, I realized, okay, this film is incomplete. The director himself feels that people have gone overboard with praise for the film. He doesn't think that it deserves the praise that it has got, because it's an incomplete film. And which is the feeling that I got. So a lot of things, I feel, when I'm thinking about this film, I feel whatever I think, it seems incomplete, because I do not know where he was going with it. And it seems like, okay, I'm just making up these ideas. As I said, like I was thinking of the sociological impact, the political messages, but I wanted to see what happens in the second half. So for me, it's more of a regret. I don't regret watching the film. It's a regret that this film did not have the second half, because I totally believe it would have been it would have been one for the ages. As of now, I don't get that feeling. So, but quite an interesting film. I quite enjoyed it. It's nice. I like that.
I didn't even know the film was incomplete until many years after I saw it. So the first time I saw it, I thought, oh, I wish I could see a little more. But then you have that reaction about many great films that I wish it didn't end. Yeah, I wish it went on forever. So I didn't pay too much attention to that. But it's only much later, many years after, that I found out that this film is not complete. However, it still doesn't take away from the experience for me. And I tried to list and elaborate on all the reasons why this film speaks to me. And if that helps you read the film a little better, I'm glad. But to all the people who are watching on YouTube, I'm extremely sorry that you had to hear me speak for so long. It's a special circumstance that, one half out of four, only two have seen the film, and I'm in defense. I'm trying to defend the film. So, and Mohammed has seen a little bit, and Samartha will be watching it later. So, yeah, I'm the only one who's seen the entire film and actually likes the film. So, I ended up with the task of speaking for it. Okay, with that, I think we should be able to call it a day, right? Anything else? I can stop the at least live stream.
Yeah,